and his wife Emma made the trip here to Northern Ireland today. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome to the stage today our friend Paul Donnelly. Round of applause. Thanks, Gary. I brought you exercise, Kevin.
Thanks, Guy, for your kind words and the warm welcome. There's a spiritual teacher that I follow called Thomas Merton, and he says, pray for one good humiliation a day. I've also followed Gary in Arc Fitness for a long period of time, and I was finally getting the chance to meet him in person last night. And when I got to meet him, I was in a bathrobe. And that's not the humiliating part of it. He says to me, you're much smaller in real life. I done a lot of recovery during Zoom, and I was during the pandemic, on Zoom meetings. And when I met people in person, they would come up to me and they'd say, I heard you speak on Zoom and you're much smaller in real life. So I'm not at the stage where I pray for humiliations, but I tend to get them anyway. Shortly, a video is going to play, and at the start, there's a bit of street art, a bit of Max Kolbe street art with the slogan, no more drug deaths. And then it's just going to go into videos of our events. And I'm going to try and talk of my own personal experience, because it's intrinsically linked with Max Kolbe, how it was founded and how we got here today. So you'll see our events at first hand on the screen, and this is how we recover together. So I'm going to take you back 6 years ago. I got the wake-up call in the form of a phone call from my sister to say my brother Ryan had tried to take his own life and he was in intensive care. The journey I had to go to my mum's was 20 minutes, and I turned to God, and I wouldn't consider myself religious at the time, and I turned to God and I says, if you just let me out of this situation, let my brother live, I'll never use drink or drugs again. And in the space of 20 minutes, once I got to my mum's, I was down on my hands and knees using drinking drugs. And I went to the hospital, and I'm by Ryan's bedside as he fights for his life, and I was full of fear. But a lot of people have spoke about the guilt and shame. And the shame that I had was I was an older brother. I should have been protecting my younger brother, and I should have been setting an example, and I wasn't able to do that. And in that moment, I wanted to change. I desperately wanted to change, and a lot of people have spoke about your valuation of yourself. The truth is, at that time, I didn't feel like I was worthy of recovery, and my brother gave me the incentive that I needed. I wanted to do this, and I wanted to show him a better way. And that is when my journey began. My dad's scouts, and somebody he knows from the football had told him about 12-step recovery, and I went to 12-step meetings, and I found the hope that people were speaking about earlier. And there was people that were able to show me love, and there was people that were able to show their self-love. And that was my first experience with 12-step recovery, and that was my first experience with seeing people recovering together. About a time passed, and I was able to get clean and sober. I had 6 months, and I had a little relapse, whatever you want to call it. And I had to go back in, and it was at this point where I had to look at my past. Growing up, I came from a loving family, loving home, and in many ways my childhood was normal. And in other ways it was completely abnormal. My uncle was murdered when I was little, and we had, as a family, a lot of loss in quick succession. And I know now people were speaking earlier about loss and bereavement and attachment styles, and it just bamboozled my young mind losing people. And what I know now about secondary loss as well is you lose parts of the people that are close to you. And when I think about trauma, that's what I think about. It's not what was done to me. It's what was done to me and how I reacted. So this was me getting back into recovery, and a period of time passed. And I felt like the addiction to alcohol and drugs was manageable. That didn't happen overnight, but I felt like it was manageable. Right before I'd got into recovery, the anxiety, depression, symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder from my work as a firefighter had really caught up with me. And when Ryan was in hospital, I had been suicidal as well. But this was a flash forward to my past, seeing how devastated my family were. So a period of time passes, and Ryan, I forgot to say, Ryan did make it out of that situation. He'd started recovery with me, but we both went on completely different journeys. He's in this video here. And a period of time passed, and that addiction had become more manageable. But I had a new identity. I was now an addict, an alcoholic, and I was an addict in recovery, an alcoholic in recovery. But I still felt that something was missing, and that was the human side. And this is what I was really struggling with, was the human side. I started taking myself out into nature and going walks, up hills, in the woods. Wolf spoke about it earlier. We're lucky in Scotland that we have hills and water in abundance. And I started taking myself to nature and feeling the effects of healing in nature. The first time I went into cold water, it was in this loch that's in the video, just by chance. And what I experienced the first time when I went in the loch was my head slowed down long enough for me to feel like I was a part of something. I felt like I was a part of something. I felt dependent on nothing and connected to everything. And that was my first experience in the water. You could call it a spiritual experience, but I was starting to recognise things. I felt like I was a part of everything, and because I was a part of everything, I belonged. And that was the first time that I'd really started to feel that human. And what happened with the water was I got a new experience. That new experience created possibility for new thinking, and the new thinking just created possibility for yet more new experience. It was my first experience of that positive loop, because up until then, everything I've always had was a negative loop. At the time I'd started Max Kolbe, and it was in its infancy. Gary spoke earlier about arc and signposting, and that was really all I was doing, was speaking about my own experience and signposting people when they got in touch. I found that, as we all know, it's an international language. People get in touch from all over the place, and I loved that connection from a personal point of view. I then came up with the idea of putting on events and using the resources that we had at our disposal, putting on free events in different locations around Scotland. We could go to hills, we could go do walks. We also used exercise circuits initially. We tried to do at least one event a week. When we first started, we had sometimes 2 and 3. We used exercise circuits, Muay Thai training, and what we found was that people are really good when they're doing stuff, but like myself, struggle a wee bit more at just being. So we started doing some group meditations and some forest bathing and stuff like that. So we're not always setting off pyro and jumping into water and jumping off cliffs, but how we focus on recovering together and what that means to us, Max Kolbe, as a group. We believe in the power of connection, and everything's relationship. Like science and religion both back that up. And if you take drugs in themselves and put them over there, they're relatively harmless. And the same with myself, I'm also harmless. But if the desire or the willingness develops inside me to use them, then this is where the problem lies. And I love the videos that I've been playing. I'm not the problem, but see this thing in between us, this invisible line that we can't see? That's where the problem, and that develops when I have a poor relationship and connection with myself. So at the heart of our group, we encourage people to get that relationship and connection with themselves, and we do that by modelling the behaviour and having people within the group that have walked that way. And the guys that were doing the podcast earlier, there was relationship between them. That's how this works in a positive way. At the tokens, the energy that we can't see but we can feel. Some people call it the power. Some people call it spirit. And if you like Star Wars, you call it the Force. We also believe in the power of storytelling and sharing. I really like Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. And for anybody that's not familiar with it, how it goes is you leave your village or your town, and that's the known and the familiar. And you go off to an unknown place, and that's daunting. You find the dragon in the lair and you slay it. And the hero's journey is incomplete unless you return home to tell them how you've done it. And that's what the group's based on. The shares, if we have organised shares, sometimes it's more natural shares that take place in nature and just happen naturally when you're shoulder to shoulder with people. But it's the hero's journey. And what I've learned from my own experience is when you're courageous enough to share the heaviest hurts with someone that will neither invade or abandon you, you can learn not to invade or abandon yourself. Sometimes it's about active listening and just respecting the silence and the space and leaving that there for people to come into. I learned acceptance from nature. I said earlier, people loved me until I was able to love myself, but I feel like nature accepted me until I was able to accept myself. And that came as another realisation when I was out and I was thinking like the trees were just observing me walking past and they wouldn't change a thing about me. And when I wake up in the morning, there's generally 10 things about me I'd try and change before I've even got out to work. The next part I want to talk about is recognising the human in people. My partner, Emma, who Gary mentioned, is in the audience. And she also has a silent illness. Emma has HIV. And we were at Scottish Parliament recently, and she was saying that the H in HIV stands for human. And the sad reality of that is due to stigma and negative perceptions. A lot of the time, people with HIV are treated less than human. So, this is what I've learned. We need to address the addiction, but unless we are able to look at the human condition and recognise ourselves as human, recognise others as human, then it's incomplete. We're all unique individuals with our own stories and perceptions. We need to acknowledge and respect the individual drumbeat and look beyond and recognise the human heartbeat. So how we work together as well, we collaborate with other recovery groups, we collaborate with organisations and institutions. We've been into prison and done talks. We've had people that have came out of prison and came to our events and still come to our events. And that person just jumping into the water there, this brings me to my next point, is a little personal shout out to my friend Lauren, who came to the group. She took a while to find out why she was there. She found out why she was there. She implemented the positive change, and she's went on to create a new life for herself. She took the blank canvas and she went out, and we're not the thing. The hill walks and the water are not the thing. We encourage people to go out and find out what the thing is and find out what it is. It's personal to you. Lauren's went away and she's found hobbies and interests. She's a Muay Thai fighter. She's a fitness fanatic. And she's took on more responsibility helping with the group and facilitating at the group. And that's how we think recovering together works. So we're big in creating that positive environment. I heard someone say once, if you're an ant and you're heading south, but you're on the elephant that's heading north, you'll never get south. So we're products in the environment that we're in, and we like to try and create that positive environment for people to come in and head in the same direction as us. We know that we've got a place within recovery, but we're not the be-all and end-all. There's a Buddhist theory that we can get confused and think that we're the moon. We're just a finger pointing to the moon, and we're quite confident and secure in knowing that. So that's Max Kolbe, that's Recovering Together. The personal, sorry, can I just say one more thing? We want to be empowering. It's a word that ARC use and ARC also do. We think that empowering people's the way forward. We don't want them to have a dependency on us. When people come and they get well and they get better, in a way they can outgrow the group, and the fact that they choose to come back means the world to us. I'm going to just go to what my personal life's like today. There's a lot happened for me and Emma over the last wee while. When I met Emma, I became a father, a stepdad, and we also had a little girl. And this has been the juggling act, is trying to keep up this and trying to be a dad and be a partner. And this is where I'm at today, whilst also continuing my healing journey. The first couple of speakers spoke about how important it is to look after yourself, and that's where I'm at today. I make sure I look after myself first, and then I can come back to them and I have something for them. So I'm going to end it with this thing that I always say to people when we're going out hill walks. And for a lot of people, the hill walks or the cold water, and everything's optional. You can come, you can have a look, maybe you might want to do it next time. But one of the hardest things for people is to reach out and to get out. And never underestimate how hard that is. For some people, the hill walks and the cold water are easy. Like the social anxiety, meeting people for the first time in a crowd will be the most daunting thing. So I'm on a journey kind of to help people give themselves the credit. And when we're going on hill walks, I always say that hill walks are symbolic to life. And when you're standing in the car park and you're looking up to them and they're towering over you, it's daunting and it's overwhelming. But we break it down. We walk on by each other's sides, step by step, breath by breath, heartbeat by heartbeat, onto a new and brighter future. Thanks for listening.